You never know who you're laughing at, because the person in rags today might be the one signing your paycheck tomorrow. This is the story of Jamal Carter, a quiet, humble young black man who stepped into the corporate world wearing worn-out sneakers and a faded hoodie, only to be ridiculed by executives who had no clue they were looking at the future owner of everything they held dear. It all started on a humid Monday morning in the heart of Manhattan. The sun had barely risen, yet the towering glass skyscrapers were already buzzing with the early hustle of the financial elite. At the center of it all stood the pristine, marble-laden lobby of the Vanguard Equities building, a place where polished shoes, tailored suits, and cold ambition were the norm. Security guards with earpieces scanned badges, interns rushed through revolving doors, and high-ranking executives barked orders into phones without looking up. Among this crowd of crisp button-downs and luxury leather briefcases walked a 22-year-old intern named Jamal Carter. But Jamal didn't look the part. His hoodie was gray and slightly torn at the cuffs. His jeans were faded and baggy, the kind you'd find in a thrift store for $5. And his sneakers, old, creased Nike Airs with mismatched laces, squeaked faintly with every step. He clutched a thin folder in his hand, the corner of his resume peeking out nervously. People stared. Not discreetly. Not kindly. He could feel it, the eyes of judgment cutting into his back, the smug smirks, the whispered laughs. One woman in a cobalt blue blazer nudged her colleague. "Looks like someone got lost on the way to the soup kitchen," she muttered, chuckling. A tall man with slicked back hair and a Rolex raised an eyebrow and said loudly, "Security must be slippin'. This ain't a halfway house." Jamal heard it all. But he didn't flinch. He walked straight to the elevator and pressed the button for the 31st floor, Vanguard's investments division. This was supposed to be his first day as a summer intern, part of a prestigious and highly competitive program for Ivy League students. But Jamal hadn't gone to an Ivy. He'd turned down Princeton, Harvard, and Yale after high school. Instead, he'd spent the last few years learning business from his grandfather, old school, handwritten ledgers, property deeds, and real estate chess moves that no professor could teach. Most people in the building didn't know that. All they saw was a poor black kid with no fashion sense. And that's exactly how Jamal wanted it. The elevator dinged open and he stepped onto the trading floor, buzzing with rapid-fire phone calls, flashing monitors, and suits moving like sharks in water. He approached the receptionist. "Hi, Jamal Carter. First day of the internship program." The receptionist, a blonde woman named Tori, blinked twice before plastering on a tight smile. "Oh, you're him?" She tried to hide her surprise but failed. Go wait in the lounge. I'll notify Mr. Landon." Jamal nodded and sat down in the corner. He could hear the whispers already. "That's the intern?" Someone whispered from behind a cubicle wall. "Did he crawl out of a garbage truck?" Someone else snickered. 30 minutes passed. An hour. Still no one came. The other interns, clad in Ralph Lauren suits and Gucci loafers, were being welcomed, toured, and ushered to their stations. Jamal just sat there. Forgotten. Or so they thought. Finally, a man with a tan suit and too much cologne walked over. "Hey, Jameer? Jerome? Whatever. Come with me." Jamal stood up. "It's Jamal." Yeah. Follow me." The man, Todd Landon, a senior investment manager, led Jamal to a cramped desk next to the file room. "This is where you'll be. Don't touch anything expensive. Just watch and listen. And try not to scare the clients, all right?" Jamal's face remained calm, but inside, a storm of emotions raged. He knew what this was. He wasn't being given a chance to prove himself. He was being shoved into a corner to be ignored. But Jamal had patience. And a plan. Over the next few days he kept his head down. He studied the operations like a hawk, watching the numbers, the patterns, the mistakes. He took mental notes of every arrogant trade Todd made, every unethical shortcut, every time the firm bet against its own clients. The other interns mocked him behind his back. "Hey Jamal, can I borrow your cardboard box? I hear it makes a great briefcase," one sneered. Another shouted across the break room, "Yo bro, Target called, they want their clearance rack back." Jamal never reacted. But he remembered everything. What they didn't know was that while they were drinking overpriced coffee and making TikToks about the grind, Jamal was staying up till 3 a.m., quietly making million-dollar real estate acquisitions through a trust his grandfather left him. Properties across Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens, even this very building, were slowly falling into his portfolio. All legally. All quietly. Because Jamal Carter wasn't just some broke intern. He was the secret majority shareholder of the company that owned the Vanguard Equities building. And his plan was almost ready. One Wednesday morning, everything changed. Jamal walked in with the same hoodie and jeans, but this time he was followed. A woman in heels and a sharp black suit was trailing behind him, tablet in hand. "Mr. Carter, the final documents have been signed," she said. "The transfer of ownership is complete. You now have controlling interest in the entire structure and its commercial tenants. The new security policies can be implemented immediately." The entire lobby went dead silent. The receptionist's mouth hung open. Todd Landon, stepping off the elevator, froze mid-step. One of the other interns dropped his coffee. "Wait, what?" someone stammered. "He owns the building?" But Jamal wasn't done. He looked directly at Todd. "I'll be visiting every floor today. There are some management adjustments I want to discuss. Starting with the investments department." Todd tried to chuckle it off. "Come on, man, we were just messing with you. Office banter, you know? No hard feelings, right?" Jamal stared at him with a cold calmness. "We'll talk in my office." "Oh, you don't know where it is? That's all right. Security will show you the way." And with that, he stepped into the elevator, the doors closing slowly as stunned faces watched in silence. But just as the elevator began to rise, someone else entered the lobby, a mysterious man in a dark coat and fedora, holding a silver briefcase. He walked up to the receptionist and said quietly, "I have an urgent message for Jamal Carter. Tell him, the Prescott Group is making their move. Tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. The Prescott Group is making their move. Tonight. Tori, the receptionist, looked up from her desk, her face pale. "Excuse me, sir, who did you say you were again?" she asked, her voice trembling. But the mysterious man in the dark coat didn't repeat himself. He simply placed the silver briefcase on the marble counter, tapped it twice, and walked out of the lobby without another word, leaving behind a stunned silence and a sense of unease that rippled across the building. Up on the 31st floor, Jamal Carter stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city stretch endlessly beneath him. His assistant, Danielle, a sharp-minded young black woman in her 30s, stood beside him, tablet in hand. "Sir," she said carefully, "that was from our security team downstairs. A man dropped this off for you. Says it's urgent." He mentioned the Prescott Group. Jamal turned. His eyes narrowed. "Prescott?" Danielle nodded, already unlocking the briefcase with a special biometric key Jamal had given her months ago. As the silver case hissed open, a tablet inside lit up, revealing a live feed from a private surveillance drone, focused on an enormous glass tower downtown with a black and silver logo, Prescott International Holdings. Jamal stared at the screen as Danielle read out the message. Encrypted file. Subject, asset seizure in progress. Target, Vanguard Equities and Carter Trust Holdings. Timeline, 24 hours. Jamal exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. The Prescott Group was no small fish. They were old money predators. Ruthless. Global. Dangerous. They had tried to buy out Jamal's late grandfather's real estate empire years ago. And when they were refused, they retaliated, by undercutting property values, blackballing his family from major deals and leaking lies to the press. But Jamal had outsmarted them at every turn, quietly building an empire under the radar. Until now. "Looks like they're done playing games," Danielle said. "You want to go public with this?" "No," Jamal replied calmly. "Not yet. Let them think I'm still the broke intern. They clearly underestimated me once. Let's keep it that way." Danielle nodded, understanding. "What's the plan?" "We hit them where it hurts," Jamal said. "Start with their weakest asset. I want a full acquisition proposal on Prescott's abandoned West Harlem project. If we lock that up before they can revive it, it'll destabilize their entire Manhattan portfolio." As Danielle left to make the calls, Jamal walked down the hall and entered the glass conference room where Todd Landon and the senior executives were waiting, some looking confused, others defiant. Todd stood up quickly. "Mr. Carter, listen, this whole thing, there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't know you were the building owner?" Jamal finished, voice cool. Or a man worth more than this entire company? Todd stammered. We were just following protocol. You didn't, look like someone who... Who what? Jamal cut him off. Belonged? Silence. Jamal stepped forward. Let me be clear. I gave you a chance. Not just to work under me but to learn. And you chose mockery over mentorship, arrogance over insight. Effective immediately, I'm terminating your contract. Todd's mouth dropped open. You can't be serious. Jamal didn't even look at him. He turned to another executive. Tracy Simmons, you're taking over as interim head of the investments division. I've seen your numbers. You're smart, ethical, and you didn't join in the childish bullying. Congrats. Tracy gasped. I don't know what to say. Say you'll fix this place, Jamal replied. And treat people right. As Todd was escorted out, his face red with rage and disbelief, the other interns sat frozen, some hiding their faces, others stealing glances at Jamal with newfound respect and fear. But Jamal didn't care about that. He wasn't doing this for revenge. He was doing it for legacy. Hours later, back in his private penthouse suite at the top of the building, a space none of the employees even knew existed, Jamal reviewed a list of properties, bank accounts, and insider tips. His private legal team, including lawyers from 3 continents, was already drawing up contingency plans. Suddenly Danielle burst in. We've got a problem. Jamal raised an eyebrow. What now? Danielle handed him a folder. Prescott just made a hostile move. They're buying up Carter Trust stock through offshore shells. Quietly. They've already accumulated nearly 9%. If they hit 15%, they can launch a board vote to freeze your assets. Jamal's eyes flared. How long until that happens? 2 days. Maybe less. He stood, face deadly serious. Then we accelerate the plan. Leak the Harlem acquisition. Trigger panic among their investors. And prepare a press release. I'm going public. But just as he spoke those words, his phone buzzed. A message from a blocked number. He tapped it open. Your grandfather made a deal with us in 1987. It's time to honor it. If you don't step down by midnight, we'll release everything. P.G. Jamal froze. The initials. PG Prescott Group. Danielle looked at him. What is it? Jamal didn't answer. He was already pulling up a locked archive on his laptop, one labeled G. Carter, Confidential Files. Files he had never opened. Files his grandfather told him to only open in case of emergency. As the encrypted folder began to load, revealing a series of letters, deeds, and one sealed envelope marked, If they come for you, read this. Jamal's face turned grim. Whatever his grandfather was hiding was now his only weapon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The room was silent except for the soft whirring of Jamal's laptop. The encrypted folder had finally opened. Inside, hundreds of documents blinked on the screen, some labeled in cryptic shorthand, others bearing legal stamps from decades ago. But one file stood out, a scanned letter marked Read immediately if threatened by Prescott Group. Jamal's fingers trembled slightly as he clicked it. The screen turned black for a moment before the document slowly appeared. His grandfather's handwriting, strong, neat, unwavering, stared back at him like a voice from the grave. Jamal, if you're reading this, it means they've come for you. Prescott Group never forgets and they never forgive. Back in '87, they tried to corner me into a partnership. A deal that would have sold out our communities and handed over the last of Harlem's land to greedy billionaires. I said no. That's when the war started. I spent years protecting our name, our legacy. But if they're back, it means you've risen high enough to scare them. Good. That means you're doing something right. But be warned, they don't play fair and they don't stop until they destroy you, or you destroy them. Attached to the letter was a digital map with red pins spread across New York. Buildings, land parcels, and forgotten zones Prescott had attempted to gentrify, only to be quietly blocked by the Carter Trust using shell companies. Jamal hadn't even realized how deep his grandfather's strategic planning went. This wasn't just about family wealth, it was a silent battle to protect entire neighborhoods from being swallowed alive. Danielle hovered nearby. What did he say? Jamal looked up. That the Prescott Group has been at this for over 30 years. My grandfather blocked their empire from expanding. Now they're trying to finish what they started, by taking me down. Danielle frowned. So what do we do now? Jamal stared at the map for a moment. We flipped the board. He picked up the phone and made a call. Get me Ray on line 1 and tell the team to prepare the West Harlem announcement for 9 a.m. sharp. We leak it to every major outlet, CNN, Bloomberg, Black Enterprise. And get me a meeting with the mayor's housing task force. We'll frame this as a black-owned revitalization initiative. Danielle nodded and sprang into action. Meanwhile, Prescott's headquarters downtown was buzzing like a hornet's nest. At the top floor, in a dark walnut-paneled boardroom, Margaret Prescott, the icy silver-haired CEO of Prescott Group, watched surveillance footage of Jamal on a giant screen. Her red lipstick stood out against her pale skin, and her voice was a soft venom. So, the boy knows, she said to the advisors seated around her. His grandfather was more clever than I gave him credit for. But this one's bold, arrogant, dangerous. One of the executives, a man named Carlyle, leaned forward. Should we trigger the financial freeze now? Margaret shook her head slowly. Not yet. Let him move first. Let him make a spectacle. We'll wait until he overextends, then we pull the rug. Back at the Vanguard Equities building, Jamal was already assembling his private war room. Screens lit up with live trading data, real-time property acquisitions and legal filings. His team, young, black, brilliant minds from Spelman, Howard, Morehouse and MIT, moved like clockwork. This wasn't a boardroom. It was a battlefield. By 9 a.m. sharp, the leak hit the airwaves. Breaking, young black mogul acquires historic Harlem property, blocks gentrification giant from expansion. The story exploded online. Twitter trended with hashtags like #CarterTakeover and #Black Wall Street Returns. Jamal's name was suddenly everywhere. The intern who had been mocked for his clothes was now being praised as a revolutionary entrepreneur and community defender. But that afternoon, as he walked into the newly renovated boardroom for a press conference, a courier appeared with a sealed envelope. It bore no name, just a silver Prescott insignia. Jamal opened it. Inside was a photograph, grainy black and white. It was his grandfather, standing next to Margaret Prescott, smiling, shaking hands. And behind them, a signed deed, transferring ownership of a Harlem building from Carter Trust to Prescott. Jamal's breath caught. What the? Danielle looked over his shoulder. That's impossible. Your grandfather hated them. Jamal turned the photo over. On the back, scrawled in red ink. How much do you really know about your grandfather's legacy? MP. Suddenly, the lights in the boardroom flickered. A warning beep sounded on Jamal's phone. Alert, Prescott Group files injunction. Carter Trust accused of historical fraud. Assets to be frozen pending court review. Jamal's heart sank. They're moving faster than I thought. He looked out the window. Police cars and unmarked black SUVs had started circling the building below. News vans were already lined up outside. Danielle's voice was hushed. Jamal, they're trying to destroy your reputation. If they make it look like your entire empire was built on a lie, they'll ruin me, he finished. Then a second alert came in, this time a live video notification. A press conference. Margaret Prescott was speaking. Jamal clicked the feed. On screen, Margaret stood behind a podium. To the public, he's a hero. But what if I told you Jamal Carter's fortune was built on betrayal? What if I told you his beloved grandfather sold out the very communities he claimed to protect? Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is about to come out. Jamal stared at the screen, his blood boiling. Danielle, prep the private jet. We're going to South Carolina. South Carolina? She asked, confused. Jamal's eyes were dark with purpose. My grandfather's old lawyer lives there. And he's the only one who knows what really happened that night in '87. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. The sleek black jet cut through the clouds like a blade, its engines humming steadily as Jamal Carter sat across from Danielle, eyes locked on a yellowing legal file he hadn't opened in years. The name stamped on the front, Carter vs. Prescott, 1987 Confidential Counsel Notes. The destination, Charleston, South Carolina. Jamal's grandfather's old friend and legal advisor, Ezekiel Rowe, lived there off the grid, retired and unreachable for decades. But Jamal knew if anyone could confirm whether the damning photo Prescott released was real or fabricated, it would be Ezekiel. Danielle looked over at him, her voice careful. If what Margaret said is true, if your grandfather really did sign over that deed, what does that mean for your entire portfolio? Jamal didn't answer immediately. He stared at the legal stamp on the file. His mind was racing. If even one of the foundational assets of Carter Trust was acquired through fraud or secret deal-making with Prescott, it could trigger a cascade of legal consequences. Civil suits, criminal probes, investor pullouts. Everything his grandfather built, everything he built, could collapse like a house of cards. Finally he spoke. Then I find out the truth. All of it. No matter what it costs. They landed just after midnight in a small rural airstrip outside Charleston. An SUV was waiting, with a young driver holding a placard that read, Carter. As they drove through the dark countryside, the air thick with southern humidity, Jamal felt a storm brewing, not just outside but deep inside him. Years of trust. Years of pride in his grandfather's legacy. Now questioned. Tainted. Ezekiel Rowe's house sat on a quiet plot of land surrounded by trees. A creaky wraparound porch. Faded wooden panels. No security cameras, no neighbors for miles. A single lantern flickered in the front window. The old man answered the door before Jamal could knock. His eyes, gray, sharp, and weary, locked onto Jamal's with recognition. Carter Blood, he said, voice gravelly. You've got Elijah's fire in your eyes. Jamal nodded. We need to talk. It's urgent. Ezekiel waved them in. The house smelled like pinewood and old books. Dust-covered law journals lined the walls. Danielle set up a small recorder while Ezekiel slowly lowered himself into a recliner. So, he began, I suppose Prescott finally played their card. Jamal handed him the photo. Is it real? Ezekiel stared at it for a long time. His hands trembled slightly. Yeah, he said finally. It's real. Jamal's heart dropped. But not the way they're making it seem, Ezekiel added. Danielle leaned forward. What do you mean? Ezekiel took a slow breath. Your grandfather signed that deed over to Prescott, to stop them from demolishing Booker T High School. Jamal blinked. What? In '87, Prescott was planning to buy up half of West Harlem and tear down the school your grandfather went to, replace it with condos. Elijah found a way to stall them. He offered a bluff deal. A single property, strategically worthless on its own, in exchange for a signed agreement that Prescott would back off the rest of the neighborhood for 30 years. Danielle's eyes widened. So he sacrificed one building to save the community? Exactly, Ezekiel said. And he had me draft a backchannel clause. If Prescott ever tried to use the deed to discredit the Carter name, we had the paper trail, the recordings, the original intent. Everything. Jamal sat back stunned. So why didn't he ever tell me? Ezekiel looked at him sadly. Because he knew one day they'd test you. And he wanted you to be ready. Danielle's phone buzzed. She answered and her face drained. Jamal, we've got a bigger problem. While we've been here, Prescott filed an emergency court motion. They're using the photo and an anonymous whistleblower's affidavit to freeze all Carter Trust accounts immediately. Judges already signed off. Vanguard Equities is on lockdown. The employees were escorted out. The media's swarming. We've been hit from all sides. Jamal's jaw clenched. Anonymous whistleblower? Danielle nodded. Someone from inside. Jamal stood pacing. That means someone on our executive team flipped. Ezekiel looked up. You've got a traitor. Jamal's mind flashed through everyone. Tracy Simmons? One of the other interns? His head of strategy? Someone must have leaked internal memos to Prescott in exchange for immunity or a payout. Danielle continued reading the breaking news on her screen. They're claiming you faked your grandfather's records. That you inherited wealth built on corruption. They're framing this as a generational fraud case. Jamal gritted his teeth. I need to unseal the original agreement. The bluff deed. Do you still have it? Ezekiel nodded. It's locked in my archive. But it's on microfilm. No digital copy. We'll have to scan it and present it physically. Danielle glanced at the time. The court hearing's been moved up. You've got less than 18 hours to file a counterclaim and bring physical proof, or they'll appoint a federal receiver to seize your holdings. If that happens, everything's gone. Jamal turned to Ezekiel. Let's get it. 2 hours later they had the film, the affidavit, and Ezekiel's sworn testimony. But there was no time to fly back. They were now racing against the clock to file in person with the New York Supreme Court clerk's office before the court opened. Danielle had booked a helicopter to get them from Charleston to a private jet waiting at an airfield. But as they raced down the road in the SUV, Jamal's phone buzzed again. A video file. Anonymous sender. Jamal clicked it. The screen flickered, and then he saw her. Tracy Simmons. Sitting in a dark room, speaking directly into a camera. This is my statement. I worked directly with Jamal Carter. And I'm here to confirm that he forged the documents to keep control of Vanguard Equities and used his grandfather's name to cover up a decades-old fraud. Danielle gasped. What? Jamal's voice dropped to a whisper. She betrayed us. The car skidded to a halt at the airfield. The jet engines were already spinning. But as Jamal stared at the video again, something didn't sit right. Her voice, the lighting, the flicker behind her. Danielle suddenly pointed. Pause it. Zoom in on the lower left corner. Jamal froze the frame and zoomed in. There, just barely visible. A reflection of a Prescott Group emblem on the glass behind her. Jamal's eyes narrowed. They forced her. Danielle looked at him. Or worse, they faked it entirely. Jamal gritted his teeth as they climbed the stairs into the jet. If they think this is over, they're dead wrong. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The jet sliced through the pre-dawn sky, heading straight for New York City. Inside, Jamal Carter sat stone-faced, staring out the window as the sun peeked over the skyline. Danielle sat across from him, tapping frantically on her tablet, syncing files, timestamping evidence and verifying audio. The microfilm Ezekiel Rowe had given them was safely secured in a fireproof case between them. This wasn't just about saving a business anymore. It was about saving a legacy, and clearing his family's name. This is the entire truth, Jamal said, his voice low but unshakable. And we deliver it before the court opens. No delays. No mercy. Danielle nodded. The court clerk's office opens at 8 a.m. sharp. We land at 7:10. We've got 40 minutes max to get through security and file before Prescott's motion becomes permanent. At 7:09 a.m., the wheels of the jet screeched onto the runway at JFK. A black armored SUV was already waiting for them on the tarmac, arranged by Jamal's private security team. As they raced toward downtown Manhattan, police scanners and news stations blared with one headline. Carter Trust under federal review, Prescott demands full seizure. By the time Jamal reached the courthouse steps, helicopters buzzed overhead, news vans lined the streets and reporters swarmed the sidewalks like bees. Mr. Carter, is it true your grandfather was involved in illegal land deals? Are you stepping down from Carter Trust? Did you forge documents to seize Vanguard Equities? Jamal said nothing. Danielle led the way, holding the briefcase tight as security guards cleared a path. Inside the courthouse, tension rippled through every hall. Prescott's legal team was already there, led by Margaret Prescott herself, who stood at the far end of the lobby like a vulture in pearls, surrounded by lawyers in charcoal gray suits. Well, she said with a cold smile as Jamal approached. I'm surprised you showed up. I expected you to run. That's what the poor always do when the truth catches up. Jamal stepped closer. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. Margaret's eyes narrowed, but Jamal walked past her. He and Danielle pushed through the heavy courtroom doors. At precisely 8 a.m., the clerk accepted Jamal's emergency counter-motion and time-stamped the physical evidence. Just in time. Judge Renata Monroe, a sharp black woman known for her zero-tolerance policy on corruption, took her seat. She tapped the gavel once. This court is now in session. Prescott Group versus Carter Trust Holdings. Let's begin. Prescott's lead attorney rose first, smugly presenting the forged footage of Tracy Simmons, the mysterious photograph and the whistleblower affidavit. Your Honor, he said confidently, what we have is a case of inherited deception, economic manipulation, and a young man using the illusion of wealth to mask a fraud empire built on lies. The courtroom murmured. Judge Monroe turned to Jamal. Mr. Carter, do you wish to respond? Jamal stood slowly. Confident. And when he spoke, his voice rang like thunder. Yes, Your Honor. But I won't respond with words. I'll respond with truth. Danielle handed the judge a leather-bound file and a digital folder. Inside, the original 1987 deed agreement, Ezekiel Rose signed affidavit, and a digitally verified timestamp of the bluff deal. It clearly showed Elijah Carter hadn't sold out his community, but had sacrificed a pawn to block a corporate invasion that would have wiped out an entire neighborhood. Then came the piece de resistance, the real video testimony from Tracy Simmons, sent directly from her secure location. In it, she sobbed as she revealed the truth. "They kidnapped my brother. Prescott said they'd hurt him if I didn't record that fake confession. Please, believe Jamal. He's done everything right." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Jamal's attorney then played audio files from the microfilm archive, secret recordings between Elijah Carter and Margaret's father from 1987, in which Elijah warned, "I'll never sell out Harlem, not to you and not to your bloodline." Judge Monroe's face was stone cold as she looked toward the Prescott team. "You knowingly submitted fabricated evidence," she said. "And you manipulated a witness under duress. This court rules in favor of Mr. Carter. All seizure attempts are denied, and full ownership of Carter Trust Holdings is hereby reaffirmed." The gavel slammed. Pandemonium erupted. Press. Applause. Shouts. Margaret Prescott stood frozen, her face pale. As she was escorted out under investigation for fraud and witness intimidation, she locked eyes with Jamal one last time. "You may have won today," she hissed. "But this isn't over." Jamal stepped forward, eyes blazing. "No, it is. Your time's up." Later that day, back at the Vanguard Equities building, now fully reopened, employees welcomed Jamal with standing ovations. Even the interns who once mocked him stood in silence, ashamed as he passed. But Jamal didn't gloat. He walked into the center of the floor, stood on a desk, and addressed them all. "Most of you laughed at me when I first walked through those doors in this hoodie and these sneakers. But I'm still wearing them. Because what I wear doesn't define me. What I do does. This company isn't just about money anymore, it's about mission. From this day forward, Vanguard Equities will fund Black-owned startups, preserve our neighborhoods, and open doors for people who never got a chance. This is bigger than me. It's about us." Thunderous applause filled the building. As Jamal stepped into his new office, a minimalist space with photos of his grandfather, Ezekiel, and community leaders on the wall, Danielle handed him a glass of champagne. "To the new chapter," she said. Jamal raised his glass. "No. To the real legacy. Never judge a book by its cover, or a man by his clothes. The people you mock today might be the very ones who hold your future in their hands tomorrow. True wealth isn't in how loud you flaunt it, but how quietly you use it to uplift others. And when legacy, integrity, and purpose come together, no amount of lies, hate, or history can bring it down." The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.